Three, two, one. And we're stuck on one. Brah. How's it, guys? Good evening. Technical difficulties. We're stuck on one. It's gonna say I don't have any phone reception. Yep. 5G is not that great, is it? Three, two, one, and nothing. So I'm gonna cancel my 5G and go to LTE. Aloha. How's it? How's it? So we will begin in a minute or two. Once I can get this stuff started. There we go. Cellular 5G. Let's go LTE. Much better. What is going on? Facebook is acting weird tonight. Hey Sandra, how's it? How's it? Aloha. Thank you for the light. Um, if you can read this, broadcast failed. Yeah, backwards. Uh, I have never had this problem before. Hold on. Okay, let's try now. Nope. Okay. Hold on, I'm just gonna try this again. Copy, go back. Oh, I know why. Because I tried to be fancy tonight. I gotta do Facebook. Facebook is the OG. And let's try now. All right. 1-0, and we're live. Okay, perfect. That's weird. Oh, man. So tonight we're going to talk about a good friend. A good friend of mine. And let's see if I have his picture on here. I should. And are you... Nope, wrong tablet. There we go. And yeah. So for those of you who are not... For those of you who are not on the YouTube to see the thumbnail, here's a picture of my friend. Hey, right on. Hey, Didi. So yeah, I also wanted to share this too. I thought it was funny. So I showed Robert this last night, and let's see, Doug. His profile picture is this one here, and that's the same shirt I'm wearing tonight. See? That's the same shirt I'm wearing tonight. Got orbs. It's it was the shirt that we used with the Wahoo Ghost tours as like our uniform. It was a T-shirt. On the front says "Got Orbs," and on the back has the Oahu Ghost Tours logo on it. I thought it was funny. He loved this shirt. He wore the shirt everywhere whenever we'd hang out when he'd come down here. Yeah, I know. I wish I could flip this around the other way around, right? So, hey Suzette, hey Aloha Cricket, how's it? How's it? Matthew, how's it? Neil, how's it? All right. So yeah, um, this is about my friend Doug, and as Robert brought him up last night. Also, I wanted to apologize real fast too. Um, I'm kind of getting used to. I'm trying to get used to doing guests because a good friend of mine, Marie, I hope she'll be on later this month as a guest of mine. She wanted to start a podcast, and so we're going to do a podcast where we talk, and I'm trying to talk to people. Unfortunately, while I'm doing that, I can't read a lot of the comments. You know what I mean? Or address the comments as they come up. I try to, but my apologies on that, yeah. Hey, Melody, how's it? So, yeah, I saw a lot of comments coming up, but like, I didn't want him to stop talking because he was having a lot of fun sharing the stories, and I was having a lot of fun hearing them. You know, I'm sure you guys were too. Robert last night was awesome. I mean, I miss the guy. We used to work together all the time, and he was always a steady one. Yeah. Hey, Chris, how's it? How's it? Always, brother, always. Hey, Joy. I don't know. Facebook was giving me trouble, but everyone is in on Facebook now. So yeah, right on, right on. Hey, Keith, how's it? How's it? So yeah, Robert knew Doug as well because Doug would come down here. He came down. Yeah, I know. I need an assistant. Period. My assistant is my 16-year-old daughter who just got her license today, which means she's out driving around with her friends. She's like, I might stop by, Dad. I'll see. Yeah, no, teenagers, no. God, I hope she doesn't scare me. There we go. Yes, uh-oh, but no, she's a good driver. You know, she's a good driver. I know she's good because she's paranoid. But yeah. So Doug Clack, he's from Illinois. In fact, it's kind of a bummer because my son is going to school less than an hour from where Doug lived. Right? Doug passed away a couple years ago. So yeah, he never really got to meet my son, but he was planning on going down and seeing him. You know, he was planning on going down and taking my son out to lunch, and you know, maybe I would go pick up my son, spend a couple of days going ghost hunting with Doug. You know, that kind of stuff would be good fun. But yeah, Doug would come on the Oahu Ghost Tours. God, almost every night when he would come down here. He'd come down on vacation for a week or two, and he would be on the tours like every night. He loved the paranormal. He loved the Hawaii. He loved, you know, so much is. It's really different here in Hawaii, right? The energy at the sacred places. I finally talked to him when we were at Ulupohea one day, and it was awesome. You know, I was like, oh, this guy is kind of cool. This is like his third time on the tour. I should talk story with him, you know. And someone was showing me pictures. He walked by and he started talking. He's like, oh, that's a he said that's a ferry. Hey, Uyalani, how's it? He said that there were ferries over there, or what other people call ferries. And I'm like, oh, okay. I'm thinking like it was like a picture. It looked like a bug, but it was this white thing with wings. And he's like, oh yeah, that's like a little fairy or a guardian angel or something like that. And I'm like, oh, okay. I'm thinking, all right, to each their own, right? You know, I respect that. I personally thought it was a fly, but then Doug started bringing up ley lines, and I'm like, oh, hey, this guy's speaking my language, huh? He's like, well, you know why they're here, right? I'm like, no, because it's sacred. He's like, no, this is the convergence of two ley lines, and I'm like, brah, that's what I thought. And he's like, yeah, we just started talking from there. I mean, this guy and me both spoke the same language, you know. Hey, Scott, how's it? Nope, no bees. You'd probably be watching over him while he's at college. Yep, I'm sure. it was, uh, it was amazing. This guy, I could sit down and talk to for hours and hours and hours and hours. On the 2014 trip, which I'll talk about a little bit later this month, he drove us around, or I wanted to take turns driving. We did a few times, but I mean, me and this guy, we would talk for 10 hours as we drive in. You know what I mean? I'd crash out, wake up, we continue our conversation, that kind of stuff. New York was a 16-hour drive or 14-hour drive or something, you know. And so we talked about everything. I mean, I remember one night I took him out after the tour to go hang out with us because we was at Oahu Cemetery. It was me, Guy, Obake, I believe. And so I picked him up and I just drove him over to Oahu Cemetery. And this was actually a very fateful day for me because, man, we just talked. I mean, I'm like, I got to start work at 6 o'clock in the morning at Home Depot, just for like part-time job. So I got off at like 10 or 11. But I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go. We're just talking story, and start work at 6, and it's like 3:30. I'm like, I think we should go because I gotta go Pro City. But then, nah, whatever. 4 o'clock, 4:30, 5 o'clock comes. 5 o'clock comes. I finally decide to leave Oahu Cemetery, drop him back off in Waikiki, and then we talk for longer, and I end up late at Home Depot. Right? I end up like half an hour later, so. And it was like I talked to him, and he made my brain hurt. Not a lot of people can do that, but a few of them have. Tom Springer is one of them. Like, you have such a great conversation, you learn so much so fast that your brain actually starts hurting. Hold on, candy bar in my pocket. I don't want the chocolate to melt. Um, that's when he shared his story with me. I mean, he's the kind of guy where he was very quiet, very humble, but if you were to ask him a question, he would answer you truthfully. But he won't go around saying this and saying that. Oh, another thing I remember on the tours was there was an orb in almost all of his pictures, or in the pictures that people took of him, there'd be this orb. And the orb looked the same. It was almost, I've never really quite seen it before. It was like almost this rainbow colored orb around him. He told me that this is his wife, Stacy. Stacy had passed away, and she's with him in spirit now. And so, as I was driving him to his hotel, I asked him, oh, so tell me about Stacy. And he's like, well, okay. Um, Might be a little hard to believe, but here's the story anyway. He told me Stacy was his wife, that they met on the other side. This guy went to the other side. I'll get into that in a second. Um, he met her in line as he was waiting to be born into his human incarnation. And they fell in love instantly, you know. And although they weren't supposed to meet in this life, they still had memories of each other, kind of thing. And he said that he met her and he thought she was a bad ghost. He was he was into paranormal investigating about in his 30s or so, and he um, he had gone to like the Valeska Max Murder House and had really bad experience over there. Like, he was sick for 2 weeks in the inn, and he just couldn't get out and get up. He would he was barely able to eat and drink, but then yeah, that was it. It was a very bad experience where he was like just completely sick. But after that, this he had all of his guardians, all of his guides, all of his protectors as well. But he would wake up and there would be this woman standing at the foot of his bed, and she'd be smiling at him. And he would, of course, be afraid because he feels drawn to this woman. He feels attracted to this woman. This woman, he knows that he is in love with this woman. And so he thought she was some kind of succubus. He thought she was some kind of spirit that was messing with him, that wasn't very good. And so they continued, right? He cast her out. Next night she'd come right back. Next night she'd come right back, all of that stuff. And finally, he was getting a little irritated because he was convinced that this was a bad spirit. She went over to him, and as he was lying down, casting around, and she took the breath out of his lungs. Simply took the breath and took his spirit out of him. He claimed that he died. And as she took his soul, his spirit, out of his body, they crossed over to the other side. They went over to heaven. And that is when he started remembering everything. He explains that when we are born, we have a memory block. We have a block put on our memory so we do not remember anything before us being little kids, us being born, that kind of stuff. And still, it's even vague, but he claims that before I was Joe, I was a spirit. I was a spirit, and he explained to me there are these lines, and I was a spirit waiting in line in this long line of souls to be incarnated as a human. And when I'd get to the front of the line, I would sign a contract saying, "This is what I hope to accomplish during this life." He explained it to me a little more in detail. So Stacy died when she was about, I want to say 11, 12, 13. She was really young when she died, and she died of leukemia. And her contract said that she wanted to experience the pain of dying a death, an agonizing, slow, painful death like leukemia, as her parents signed their contract saying that they wanted to experience the pain of losing a loved one at a young age. This was all in their contracts, parts of their contracts. Because when you die, when you return to spirit, you have these experiences, you have this sorrow, you have this pain, you have these memories of that, and it makes you stronger, and it makes you more of who you are meant to be, right? It makes you grow, right? Hey Phoebe, hey Karen, how's it? Aloha. And so he explained, and that's when he and Stacy got married. He said they got married by this being that he can only describe as a bright, bright light. Like he said, we would call him God or Jesus, and this bright light united the two of them, right? And the way he said it was amazing. I mean, and as you could tell, I mean, I could talk to you could have talked to this guy forever if you're interested in this kind of stuff, right? And so after they got married, and time is not even relevant. They spent a bunch of time in heaven, going around, doing whatever. He doesn't remember much of that. Then he remembers waking up back in his body. Yeah. And hey, Malia, how's it? And he remembers waking up back into his body and everything changed. He said that their souls were united, him, Doug, and Stacy. And now I'm listening to this story, and the skeptic part in me is not. You can't change your contract, Phoebe. Sorry. The skeptical part in me, of course, I want to write this guy off as legally insane. I want to write this guy off because it makes my brain better. But the way he would talk, the way he would say things, the way he would answer you, you could tell it was 100% genuine. I mean, this guy, I don't think he could tell a lie, right? Hey, Janice, how's it? He was always so honest and so open about everything, right? He is a fantastic human being. He invited me. Oh wait, let me continue this one. So I dropped him off, and I finally drive back. I'm driving to my work. I'm already late, but whatever. You know what I mean? So I drive back to Home Depot in Pearl City. And in the car, my brain is spinning. My brain is hurting. And I'm praying to God. And I'm like, what the hell is going on here? you know? I'm like, what the hell is going on? What am I supposed to do with this knowledge? What am I supposed to do with this information that he's given me? Even if it is true, what am I supposed to do with it? How do I take this? And I said, God, please give me a sign. What am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to live? Is this my calling? Is this my path? Or am I meant to be something else? And I walked into a Home Depot. It was April 1st. And as I got there, the manager walked. The door was still locked. Because no wait, yeah, no, it was still locked because it wasn't open yet. And then the manager, I was waiting at the door. I knocked on the door to get in, and the manager's like, "Joe, we need to talk." come with me to my office. And I'm like, oh, hey Ben, how's it? I'm like, oh, okay, we need to talk. Am I in trouble because I was late? And he took me back to the office, and he's like, see, so what I specifically prayed for is, am I meant to do this, work normal jobs like Home Depot, or am I meant to do something else? The guy took me to the back into his office, and he looks at me, and he's like, I'm so sorry, but I have to do this. I have to let you go. And I'm like, holy crap. I literally just prayed for this 5 minutes ago, you know? And he's like, we really tried to keep you. You're a good worker. We really tried to keep you, but you had three no call no shows. And company policy is that's immediate termination of the company. And I'm like, what no call no shows? And he's like, and he pointed it out. I was like, those no call no shows I didn't know about because I missed the announcement of a meeting because I was out sick. I was out sick, and I told the manager I was going to be out for a couple days. Well, those couple days I didn't call in the morning and say I'm calling out sick. I figured that by telling him, today's Wednesday, doctor appointment's on Friday, I'm not going to be in today, tomorrow, or Friday. That's calling out sick, right? That wasn't calling out sick. And the guy tells me, he's like, I'm really sorry, but, we're going to have to let you go. And I'm smiling ear to ear. And I'm like, thank you, God. And he's like, what? I'm like, this is not an April Fool joke, huh? He's like, no, I'm sorry. It's really not an April Fool joke. Um, and I walked out with a big smile on my face. What's even kind of funny is I think this was the time Jubu met me. Well, he saw me. I never met him for years and years and years and years later, but he asked me if I worked at Home Depot Pearl City because he was one of the contractors there, and he was working on the aisle that was right in front of the manager's office. And he said he saw me walk out, and he was like, "Oh, that guy just got fired." And I'm like, "Bruh, how you remember that?" He's like, "Joe, you have a very unique face." I'm like, "Oh, okay, thank you." So yeah, it was fascinating, and I'm like, well, I mean, there you go. There's my sign from God. I meant to do something else, right? And that's kind of I started doing this a bit more and more and more and more, and I'm like, okay, well, let's go into this and see where it leads. So this was either a few days later or on the same trip or on the next trip, I forget, but one of these trips, we were done with the tour, and Doug told me, oh, Joe, I'm doing a crossover in my hotel. Me and the team, we're going to cross over. I think this was actually before because I didn't really know too much of him. He's like, we're going to cross over 23 million souls. And I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, all right, well, we'll see. He's like, he tells me him and his team are in the room, and I'm welcome to join him. They're all going to be in his hotel room today. And I'm like, sure. I love to meet more people. And I'm thinking to myself, I love to meet more people. Let's go ahead and do this, right? And so I parked that night. I went up. He was at the Waikiki Circle Hotel. Remember, the rooms are weird. They look like pieces of pie because it's a circle, yeah. I walked in, and I'm like looking around, and there's this Doug sitting on the bed. And he's like, okay, are you ready? And I'm like, where's your team? He's like, they're here. And I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, that's okay. I'm like, are they ghosts? He's like, no, they're interdimensional beings. And I'm like, oh, okay, benefit of the doubt. And see, this is why it's so important to give the benefit of the doubt. Because I'm thinking to myself, this is strange, but something was telling me to keep going. He's like, go have a seat. And so I sat down. He turns on his spirit box, which I actually have the same kind of spirit box that he had. Right over. In fact, somehow I ended up with two of them. I don't know how I got two of them. Yeah, this one. This one here. This little spirit box. They sell on eBay and they sell on Amazon and all of that. right? And so he's sitting over there with this, and he's like, I really don't like this too much. I have the Frank box, and for a little bit of history, Frank box was the first ITC spiritual communication device like that. The guy Frank would make them. He made a set number of them, and they they were amazing. He said he couldn't bring it to Hawaii because he tried to once, and the airplane thought it was a bomb. It's just a homemade radio that you can turn back up. You can turn up and down and make it scroll forward and backwards, and you know, basically like this, right? Sweep forward. Oh, the noise of that. Hello, is anybody there? We're gonna do this a little bit later. We'll do this a little bit later. But yeah, this is the one he turned on, and so he turns it on. He describes to me what it is. He's like, okay, this is a radio signal, and you can hear how it's like do 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 do, like staticky kind of stuff like that. He turns on the box, and I hear a woman, loud and clear, come through. Hi, honey, how are you? And I'm like, what? How are you doing this? And he starts tearing up a little bit. He's like, "Hi, honey, I love you. I miss you." He's like, "Joe, this is my wife, Stacy, and Stacy, this is my friend Joe." And then the woman comes back on the box and says, "Nice to meet you, Joe." And I'm like, "What the hell is going on?" It over all of those little beeps and clicks and words, and I'm like, "Nice to meet you, Joe." And I'm like, "Hi, Stacy. Nice to meet you too." And I'm like, this is unreal. I'm not sure if I ever interacted with interdimensional beings. I wonder what that might be like. Interdimensional beings simply mean that they're not of our dimension. Angels are of another dimension. Spirits are of another dimension. That's kind of what an interdimensional being is. It's a whole bunch of them, and it's kind of hard to give them a physical shape because they're not in this three-dimensional. They're interdimensional, so they don't have the need for a physical shape, right? Um, and so this other guy comes on, and I forgot what he said, but he was joking around with Doug. So the guy with this other voice came on and said, "Well, finally," something like that. And Doug's laughing, and I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Oh, this is my, what did he call it? His operator." And his operator always likes to tease him, so he teased him back. You know what I mean? And they're kind of cracking jokes a little bit back and forth. And I'm like, "Bruh, what is going on, dude?" He's talking to the radio. you know? More than that, he's talking to the space between the radio. I'm like, and he explains to me that his operator is there to help, and all the interdimensional beings, they're there to help with the transitioning of these souls. And now, then as he said that, I actually, this was a little bit before. This was when I got into the room. See, I haven't told this story forever. I kind of skipped to the good part. This one was, I walked into the room and I could feel the pressure. I didn't want to believe that there were 28 million souls, but if they took a little tiny bit of space, I would have believed that, because I walked in and there was this pressure in my head like I've never felt. What it reminded me of was Samoans have that when there's a spiritual thing, they feel this pressure building up in the head, this headache, right? It felt to me like something was squeezing my head, like there wasn't enough room in that room for me. And Doug looked at me, he's like, "Are you all right?" I'm like, "Hold on." He's like, "Do you need help?" I'm like, No, I want to try something." And so I closed my eyes and I just kind of went with whatever was coming through my mind. And I'm like, "All right, let's imagine a bubble around my head." So I closed my eyes and I concentrated and I made a bubble around my head. And then I made the bubble go bigger. It got bigger and bigger and bigger. And as the bubble got bigger, my pain lessened considerably. And then I'm like, "That's weird." And then I made the bubble smaller. I imagined it smaller and the pain came back. And I'm just kind of sitting there for a few seconds like, no pain, ouch. No pain? Ouch. What the hell's going on here? No pain, pain. And I'm like, this is weird. And then I decided to make my bubble out of metal, and then the headache went away. And I just kind of latched it there and kept it there, and I was fine the rest of the night. Okay, back to the spirit box, right? He told me that how he works is he is a kind of like a portal conduit. I forget the word he used, because because when he came back here, the memory block was put back, but he still had some memories of the other side, right? He still had some memories of what we call heaven and all of that, but not a lot of them. And because he had these memories, he could cross over spirits, because a lot of spirits are afraid, right, to cross over. And so what he does is he opens up his entire body. The guardians, the guides, the interdimensional beings would take each spirit into him, and as they are in him, they can see his memories. They can see if he's lying. They can read his mind. They can go into him and see all of that, right? And so, they would see the glimpse of heaven that he can remember, and they would all of a sudden wake up, and they would remember, and they would cross over. And he said it's a super fast process. They go in and phoom, they're gone. They go in and phoom, they're gone, right? And it's like, wow, you know. Okay, so we're just playing around with the spirit box while this is all going on. I'm like, so when does it start? He's like, oh, it already started. And they're doing their thing now. And I'm like, what do we do? Oh, we just hang out. We can use the spirit box and see how things are going. And so we did. And then Doug is like, is there anybody on the other side that would like to talk to Joe? Because first he asked me, do you want to talk to anybody? And I'm like, power of suggestion? No, not really. You know what I mean? I go say, oh yeah, I like to talk to my grandpa Chemo. And then all of a sudden, with all the little phonetics, oh, I think I heard Chemo. Like that. Power of suggestion, right? So I'm like, well, let's see who would like to talk to me. And he's like, okay, if anybody would like to talk to Joe, now's your time. Come on through. And this lady came up and she was like, Mariah, Mariah, Mariah. And he looks at me, he's like, do you know a Mariah? I'm like, yeah, actually, my Auntie Mariah, she just passed about a month or two ago. She was 100 years old Chinese lady. And I'm like, that was her, because she would always kind of yell because she was a little bit deaf. I mean, she's 100 years old, right? She could still walk with a cane, and she still lived by herself. But she she would always say the same thing a couple times, always louder, right? Um, and I'm like, yeah, that's my Auntie Mariah. It was her voice. And I'm like, hi, Auntie. What can I do for you? And over the spirit box, I hear her say, give Joe a hug for me. And Joe is her son, my uncle Jozo. He's 90. It's like, give Joe a hug for me. And I'm like, what the heck? And half of me is thinking, okay, there's something demonic here. You know what I mean? There's something that's not natural here. These are evil spirits trying to trick me. I'm trying to convince myself that none of this is real. Yeah. Yeah, hold on, let me read some of this. I just hope they don't decide to loiter while they are invited inside of crossing. Yeah, well, we'll get into that in a little bit. Hey, Jacob and Jeanette, how's it? Aussie, how's it, brother? So yeah, it was fascinating talking to this guy. We kept going on, and he explained to me that a lot of people in our lives actually are your friends and your family as a spirit, and you sign this contract to have them be part of your life down here, you know. So I'd always felt drawn to the subject I'm going to talk about Friday night, Kaupe, right? Half man, half dog. I've always felt drawn to him, and he's always come across, And so this other voice came up, this really gruff voice came up when he said, "Does anybody else want to talk to Joe?" and it didn't even say its name. It just spoke, yeah, like that. And I looked at Doug, and Doug's like, "You know who that is?" And I'm like, "I have a feeling." Doug was thinking the same thing I was. I'm like, Doug's like, "This is one of the ancient spirits that you talk about." And I'm like, "Damn it, I knew it." And I asked Doug, I'm like, "All right, Doug, were we connected in a past life or before?" And he's like, "No." He's like, "No, you weren't." He had the little pendulum thing that would answer his questions. That's how he communicated with Stacy. Yeah. He's like, "No, but he has always known you, and he's always been interested in you, right?" And we talked, and if I remember the conversation correctly, it was about like, "What do you need?" And Doug's like, "He hasn't crossed over yet." And so I said, "Well, why don't you cross over?" He said, "No." This gruff voice came and said, "No, not yet." And I looked at Doug, and I'm like, "Not yet." He's like, "I don't know." He didn't cross over, but he went through me, and he saw, but he didn't cross over yet. And I'm like, "All right." Um, then this other guy came across, my friend Jacob, who died when I was 19 or 20. No, I'm sorry, 21, 22, because my son was born. So about maybe 22 or so. Um, Jacob was my friend growing up. Me and my brother's friend. We would always play together. We knew little kid days, kind, right? He lived up the road. His mom is my godmother. We went church together, all of that stuff, right? Um, just a really really good friend. The whole family, right? He got a brain tumor and passed away from that a few months later. And I hear his voice, and I'm like, "No way, this is Jacob." And I'm like, "This is some kind." I'm thinking to myself, "This is something that's trying to get me." And he's like, "Hi, Joe, how are you?" And I'm like, thinking to myself, "BS, BS." And I'm like, "Okay, if you're Jacob, tell me about our memories. Tell me about a memory that me and you shared." And he laughed and said, "You remember basketball? Because we'd always play basketball in the park." And he said, "You remember the coconuts?" And starts laughing, and I start laughing. So it was kind of funny because he was always his mom and dad were like Sunday school teachers and big part of the church, and so we'd always tease him because we're little kids, right? And it was funny because he broke the we had a plumeria tree in the backyard. He got pissed off at us one day, and he broke the branch off out of to spite us, right? And then the tree just went crazy with flowers, and it's like, "Bro, you got the holy touch, bro. Look at that," And he was all even more mad. But so while he was at home in bed, going through chemotherapy and all of that, I was afraid to visit him. I was afraid to see him like that. I was afraid of a lot of things. Um, but one day I decided I wanted to introduce him to my son. So my son was little, barely a year, if that. And now he's what? Now he's turning 21. And we go, and Jacob has enough energy to go sit outside with me. And we're sitting outside on the ground. And Makana, my little boy, is just kind of toddling around. And they have a coconut tree in front of Jacob's house. And it has these little tiny coconuts that fall off. The little seed kind of thing. And he's just sort of walking around, and we have these it was either Mormons or Jehovah Witnesses. I think it was Mormons that came up to us, and they were trying to get our attention and talk to us about the word. And I'm like, I kind of just want to spend time with my friend. And they kept trying to talk, and my little son, who's barely a year old, if that, grabs a coconut and starts throwing it at the guys. Jacob thought that was the funniest thing ever. He's like, "Oh, you touch your boy well, yeah." But yeah, that's the coconut stuff that he brought up. And he was laughing and I was laughing, and I'm like, "How is this possible? I'm talking on the spirit box to my friend. I just talked to my auntie. What the heck is going on here?" Um, he told me one last thing before he parted. He said, "Give my mom a hug for me." And so, yeah, we went through more and more, but those were the highlights of that night. I mean, I was just, my mind was blown. As I drove home from Waikiki when the sun was just about coming up in rush hour traffic, I remember I was taking the Pali cutoff from the freeway, and I had this idea because as I was driving, I felt two people sitting in my car with me. I felt Jacob in the front seat, and I felt Kaupe in the back seat. And this wasn't the terrifying, scared. This was the now he's a spirit, so he no longer has to eat people. You know, that Kaupe. It was more of a wizened, almost ready to cross over kind of spirit. And I decided I'm gonna try messing around, right? So I turn on the radio, and I put it on random, so it just skips the station every like 3 seconds. And I started talking, and I swear the answers came through the music. It would play a 3 second clip and then go to the next station, and then 3 second clip and go to the next station. And I was talking to them all the way home, both of them. It was something else. Um, that day, I called up my godmother and I told her everything that happened. And she's always been a really good guide, counselor. Auntie Lani Almanza. She's very much into the spiritual stuff. She has a book too if you guys want to look her up. Lani Almanza. Um, she, I talked to her, I spoke to her. Of course, she misses her son, so she starts crying, you know. And I, I wanted to know what she thought of this guy, Doug. She's Catholic and very devout and all of that stuff. And I'm like, what do you think of what this guy is telling me? And she said, you know what? I think he's right. Like, me and your uncle, we know everything that your friend Doug said about the lines, about the contract, about the other side, about. I'm like, wait, what? And she's like, yeah, everything you said. She's like, he didn't tell anything. He didn't tell you anything false. And then when I told her Jacob said to, tell you I love you, that was over the phone, so I couldn't give her a hug. She started crying. And she said, Joe, this is the best birthday present I could have gotten. I didn't even know it was her birthday. You know, it was so amazing. Not all ghost stories have to be scary booga booga, right? This one was more about like just like love and that kind of stuff, and it was good. And yeah, it was it was a trip. Doug has helped me do crossovers. Obviously, that's kind of what he does, right? Coffee break. So Doug would always help with the crossover, help me out a little bit here and there. Um, he would send his team over, and he would laugh. I'd be like, "Oh, hey, Doug, by the way, we went to this camp. I'll tell you guys that story actually. We went to this camp. I'm not gonna say which camp just because they don't really want to be known for hauntings and blah blah blah, but you would know the camp. um, we went over there the first time just to hang out. We rented a little cabin, and Hawaiian Hauntings got together. It was a little camping trip when it was smaller, like only a couple hundred people. And we went camping over at this camp and just got around telling ghost stories, right? Hey, Annie, how's it? And so Guy was with us, Guy Belanta. He'll be on here later this month, I hope. Um, that guy can talk to anybody. I swear to God, right? So one of the caretakers, or the guy that lives on the property, is walking around checking out everything. The guy goes right up to him. Hey, right? You get ghost stories over here? Just complete stranger out of the blue is like, hey, you get some ghost stories over here? Oh, that guy would light up. Oh yeah, why you like that? He's like, oh man, that's why we're here. We're a group Hawaiian Hauntings and blah blah blah. And he took us on a tour around the camp and showed us the stories and this and that. And he opened up a little place in the basement. He said, there's this building, and in the basement of the building was sand on the ground, right? He's like, over here was when they built the building, they found a mass burial site for children. And so they took out the bones and they reburied them somewhere else on property. But he's like, this place is a lot of stuff going on. So he let us investigate over there, told us just lock up when we're POW. And we were over there, and it was like the first time we did this, had a bunch of us. We were in this little basement with like, it stores the canoes and the life vests and all of that kind of stuff, right? Um, there was something a little darker there. There was something a lot darker there. That's the one where we had the face. I don't know. For some reason, I think we debunked this, but I'm not 100% sure. Either way, it looks cool. Bruh, stop. Stop trying to advertise stuff to me. I have a lot of pictures saved to my favorites. Yep. There was something going on, and we got this picture here. This is in the basement of that building, right? So yeah, it we we tried to cross it over, but it was bad. Now I'm gonna take a little break from this story and tell another one because this is exactly what came into my mind. Was one of the stories Doug shared with me. Doug is badass. He's this really quiet, humble, nice guy, but man, you don't want to see him flex. You know, um, he went to investigate, and this guy would drive everywhere and investigate everywhere. I mean, he sent me pictures and pictures from all over the country, all over the world, Machu Picchu, that kind of stuff. And he would go over there to investigate hauntings and ghost hunt. I'm like, bruh, just a few years, about a decade too soon for me, bruh. Otherwise, I'd be right there with you. So he investigated this one house in the mainland, and it wasn't very well known, but it was the site of a murder, like several murders. There was a doctor, and the doctor would kidnap some of the patients sometimes, and he would take them home and he would lock them in his basement. And yeah, Doug called him the butcher because he would do experiments and really bad stuff to them. Of course, this guy was caught. He was caught, and they found all the bodies and all of that. And he was killed, right? I forgot how he was killed. I don't think Doug went over that part, whether it was death sentence or what. Um, but he still haunted that house, and now years, maybe decades later, this family wanted him to check out this haunting in the house. It said whenever they walked down the stairs into the basement, something would scratch them, something would push them, somebody would be down there, like this man. And so he went down there to look, and the guy was there, the butcher, and tried to scratch him and tried to all of this kind of stuff. And he told me the story with him was when he died, this entity, this demon, came up to him, right? I cannot say what camp it is. This demon came up to him, and this demon said, well, what was that? I don't know if you guys heard that. Oh, well. This demon came up to him and said, and looked at him, his soul, when he died, and laughed at him and said, you're not going to heaven, right? You did so much bad things in life. You are not going to heaven. You're going to burn in hell. You're going to burn in hell for eternity. And the butcher was obviously scared because he didn't want that. And the demon came and said, if you don't want to burn in hell, then I'm giving you an opportunity. Serve me. I'm one of Satan's top generals. You serve me, you do what I tell you to do, and you will not burn. So what choice did this guy have, right? So this guy decided to, everybody that tried to move in, he would harass them. He would, kind of like the spirit at this camp. There was a thrall there. What it did, there was a demon, but the demon kept its hands clean, just sat on its throne, in the back, did nothing at all, and got to feast on all the fear, on all the sadness, the misery, the anger, and all of that stuff. And it got to feed off of all of this energy that its thrall was causing. Same thing with Doug and the butcher. And so Doug went over there, and he's like, "You need to leave. You need to cross over." And he's like, "You don't know who I serve. You don't know who my master is. My master is gonna cut you like a pig." And so he called his team, and he walked out of the room. And he said, from what he saw, the team came out of the cellar dragging this guy, right? And this guy is like, "You're not gonna," he's like, "You're gonna burn in hell. Once my master hears this, you're gonna regret touching me," and blah blah blah. And then about a couple minutes after he's out yelling and cussing at everybody, this little tiny imp is dragged out, fearful for its life, just terrified of these archangels and these guardians. And this little tiny pathetic looking imp is pulled out, and the butcher looks at this imp and says, "Master, is that you?" And Doug starts laughing, and he's like, "You see your master now? Guess what? They lied to you. They always lie to you, right?" And so he took care of both of them. He crossed over the butcher. The butcher was like, everything was a lie. He's like, "Yeah, everything was a lie." He's like, "You need to cross over. You need to go through your trials. You need to go through all of that stuff." Basically, what Doug told me was, your trials, when you die, you go through this period of time, kind of like purgatory, maybe like hell. But it's, um, some people might call it hell. Some people might call it purgatory. But it's called. Well, I said it a million times. I forget what it's called. Life review. So when you die, you review your life, but not as like it's in a book, but you live your decisions. The person you slapped because you were angry, you become that person. The person that you helped, the homeless person that you gave $10 to, you become that person. And you see how you affected their life. The dog you kicked, the child you abused, the guy you murdered. You get to experience life from his point of view, his family's point of view, everybody's point of view. And that, if you can get through it, is what cleanses you. So don't think that this butcher got off scot-free. He had to atone for his sins, right? This is the kind of stuff that Doug told me. And it was just made total sense. So we're at this camp, and we managed to get rid of the thrall, but not before it starts affecting some people in our group. We had this other girl, and yeah, this was the time we had this other girl, and she's over there. She's a sensitive, but she's not really doesn't know how to use it. And she's over there by the bed. There was like a bunk bed or something with a whole bunch of stuff on it. And all of a sudden, she yells in a high-pitched little girl's voice, "You guys need to leave. Get out of here now." And I'm like, "Wait, what? Is that?" Like, who said that? And it was my friend. And we're all looking at her, and she's like, "You guys need to leave. He's coming. He's coming. You guys need to leave. Get out of here." It wasn't her. It was not her. She was possessed by a little girl. So we end up carrying her out the door, and I'm sitting on the stuff with her. I think she came first, right? Um, yeah, and I'm sitting down, and I have a crystal, a big crystal. You guys have seen it before. It's in my car. And I give that to her because it's a protector. And she comes back to herself. And she looks around. She's like, "Hey, Joe, how'd I get outside? What's going on?" And I'm like, "You don't remember what you were saying?" She's like, "No, I was saying something." She's like, "I was inside there leaning up against the bed. How did I end up out here?" And I'm like, "Oh, God, never mind." I start talking a little bit to her. And then all of a sudden I hear, "Joe, Joe, Joe." And now there's this other guy that's coming out. In fact, I think he was first. He was leaning up against the canoe like that. And I watched him go a little bit, get a little dizzy and like that. And I'm like, brother, you okay? He's like, yeah, yeah, I'm all right. Kind of dizzy, but I'm like, you okay? What's going on? He's like, I don't know. I just, I can't stop thinking about my brother who died. I'm like, your brother died? My brother died when he was a little kid, and I just can't stop thinking of him right now. He's like, but the funny thing, Joe, is I never met him because he died before I was born. And I'm like, what? And then he slouches over, and we have to carry him outside because he's a big guy. And I give him my pohaku, my protector rock, and slowly he starts coming back to himself, and he's like squeezing this rock as tight as he can, holding on to it, same like the girl was doing to the crystal. And it's like, I'm like, what the heck is going on? Something was going on that night. And so I forget how that night ended. We did a prayer, and everything was good. And after that, I did my 2014 trip with Doug, and we came back for round two because I kept insisting. We got rid of the thrall. We didn't get rid of the bad guy, the demon. In fact, the picture I showed you, I think, was that the second time we were there, perhaps. We went back with the intention of drawing this thing out. So we're trying all these different things. Oh, bro, it's cold right now. We're trying all these different things to draw this guy out, right? We were at it for 5 or 6 hours. I mean, we were pretending like, oh, I heard there's a little girl in this area that needs help. If there's a little girl that needs help, come and show yourself. And I'm thinking this guy will take the bait, right? But nah, he was smarter than that. You know, he knew we were trying to make him pretend to be the little girl like he would do, and be like, oh yeah, okay. And then once you had him committed, then you swoop down and your guides come over and kick his okole and stuff, right? Actually, previous to this investigation, we went around the entire camp, all the cabins, all the rooms, the whole grounds, and we blessed it with Hawaiian salt, with holy water, with tea leaf. We blessed everything but that one. We blessed that building, but we didn't bless the door that we went to go back into the little cellar, the basement. We left that door open and unblessed. And so we were in there for hours and hours trying to get this thing to come out, and it wouldn't come out. And finally, we're like, all right, well, let's go ahead and pray. Yeah, let's go ahead and call it. One of my friends had an obelisk, like not the kind on the app, the real obelisk. It's a box, and it just says words very robotically, and it's always like it'll say like November, autumn, France, like that. It's a very robotic voice. And so the owner of the spirit box just kind of put it down, and it was right in the middle of us. We got together in a prayer group in a circle, and we all held hands and we started praying the Our Father who art in heaven, right? And as halfway through the prayer, the obelisk kicks up, and it says, just like this, scary. And I'm like, does that thing have tones like that? And the lady's like, I've never heard that before. It drew it out like, ooh, I'm so scared kind of thing. And so I'm like, all right. And, I kind of looked at her like that, and she shook her head. And I was still praying. And so we continued the prayer again and again. And the third time we did the Our Father who art in heaven, you know, something ran out of the cellar because all the life vests and life jackets were all hung up. This thing ran right by it, and you could see all the life jackets just shit like go like flying, but they were still hung up. But somebody, like, if you were to run by it all of a sudden and you would knock it, but nobody was even near it. My friend had her backpack, and on her backpack she had a bottle of water or something, one of those hydro flasks, and as it ran by there, it popped out the hydro flask. You know, it popped out onto the ground, and we're just kind of looking at each other like, all right, let's just finish this prayer. So we finished the prayer, and then we blessed the room, and we blessed the door, and everything was out. And it felt like we got rid of it. Um, The next few days were a little unsteady for me. I We didn't deal with this thing. We just kicked it out. So what if it goes to the neighbors' houses, right? What if it latches onto somebody? Um, all of these what ifs, right? And like, so guy called back 3 days later, and he's like, "Oh, hey, how you guys doing?" You know, because they became friends with the guy now, right? And he's like, "Oh, they actually wanted us to come and bless the grounds." They said after you were done blessing the grounds, it was really weird because we had all kinds of electrical problems. Like they have a gate that's electrical that lets people in. You got to put in the code, and that wasn't working. It just stopped working, and the codes wouldn't work, and it would just open and it would close, and just random stuff. And he said, but probably one of the weirder things was in his office. We didn't bless his office. The door locked itself and locked everybody out. Um, the deadbolt shut with nobody in the office. They had to break in through the window. And I'm still like, that makes sense because this guy is trying to get back in, but we had blessed everywhere and he cannot get back in again, right? And so it's like, so I called up Doug and I'm like, Doug, you got to do me a favor. I think I messed up. He's like, oh, what do you mean? I'm like, I did something. He's like, are you talking about that guy at the camp? And I'm like, I didn't tell you anything about the guy at the camp. He's like, no, my guides told me. They said thanks. They've been looking for him for a long time, and he was always hiding, and so the guides and stuff could not find him, or the guardians and the police force, he called them. He said they wanted to tell me thank you because they finally caught him. And he's like, no, don't worry. You set him loose. You knocked him loose, and everything was good. After you knocked him loose, they found him and they removed him. So I'm like, this guy knew what I was doing already. You know what I mean? I'm like, bro, that's unreal. I have a few other more Doug stories, but like but that'll be another time this month about the 2014 trip because I took the 2014 trip. We went ghost hunting for a whole week, all over the country, all over the U.S. It was a lot of fun. With Eric and Doug and a few other people every now and again too. Um, Doug. He told me so much. You could ask him a question and he would answer it, and then he would have his pendulum going too, and you could tell. You know what I mean? You could watch the pendulum respond to him, yes or no, like that. Yeah. Either way, the last time he came down here in February, we blessed the house, and a lot of people in the live liked it. We blessed Pepsi Guy's house. Me, Guy, and Doug. We had already blessed the house. We had already gone in the house and investigated, me and Guy, but Doug came by, and so Guy wanted to bring him into that house again. Last story for you guys, and then we go call him a night. 2000, this guy passed away in this apartment that we investigated. He died in the apartment, and nobody had been in the apartment since then. I think his brother did, but his brother lived on the mainland, and then he just went back to the mainland. I mean, the power was off, the water was off for 20 years. This was about 2020, yeah, around there. 2020, 2021, I think, perhaps, right? And so, yeah, 2021. We call him Pepsi Guy because he had boxes and boxes and boxes, like a hoarder's house, but just Pepsi all the way like 3, 4 feet high, empty, like empty cans that were put back in the Pepsi box. You know, tons and tons of Pepsi. Hey Conrad, how's it? So yeah, tons and tons of Pepsi cans, and we walked into the house and it was dark. We started doing a blessing, and we used a spirit box, and Guy found out the guy's name from the owner of the building, and the guy's name came through a few times, right? He talked to us. The last time we went there, we helped to cross him over, me and Guy, and he was back there and he said thank you. As we blessed the house, Doug described to me what he was seeing. He was seeing black tar all along the roof, the corner where the wall meets the roof, this black, dried up tar. And I could feel it. The whole place was kind of dark. But that wasn't the guy. The guy had already crossed over, but that was all of the energy, right? The guy, from what we believe, was more like, from what we believe, the guy was depressed. The guy was not doing so well, and he was by himself, and he was lonely and angry, and all of that stuff kind of piled up, and that manifested itself into this black tar that had been sitting there for a long time. Well, one of the reasons they wanted us to bless the place is because the neighbors above them and below them would complain of noises coming from the apartment at night, right? So it took a lot out of Doug, but he managed to break it. As we were blessing it, he said the blessing was helping it. When the holy water and the tea leaf and the salt was making it crack, and then it just dissipated, right? So he did that, and the place looked brighter. I didn't even say that. The people that were watching the live said, "Did you turn on a light? Because the place looks brighter. Like there's no power in that whole apartment. There's no reason for it to have looked brighter, but it did, and it felt so much lighter. You could tell the difference 100%. It was awesome to witness this. Um, that's the kind of work Doug did, right? He helped cross people over. He helped with all of that kind of stuff. He explained to me on that trip, and that was the last picture we had taken, the one I showed you guys earlier, that this will be his last time to Hawaii and his last trip that he took, because his time is up. Doug was about, hold on, I'm totally lost here. I don't know how to use my phone. How ridiculous is that? Doug was about, here we go. Here's Doug. Here's me at the last time. I mean, I had my Hawaiian hunting shirt and everything, you know. Doug was in his early to mid 50s. Yeah. He aged super fast because of the work he did. Because when a spirit would go into him and cross over, it would leave its karma. It would leave all of the energy that it accumulated. Like clothes. It just drops the clothes and walks away, right? So it would go into him and it would leave all that junk and then just walk away. And because of that, he told me his organs were like deteriorating. They were falling apart already because of all the crossovers he did, because of all the work that he did. His body is not meant to take that, and that's why he aged so rapidly too. And yeah, October, I want to say 2021, 2022, he passed. And you know what? I talked so much. It's been an hour and 10 minutes and I've been talking. I didn't even get a chance to use this yet. So we'll hang out a little bit longer. Will you go ahead and use this? I really wish I could make this thing louder. I hope you guys enjoyed the stories of him tonight, right? I always loved, as you could tell, I love talking about him. He's awesome, you know. Hello? Hi. Thank you for the stars. If there's anybody here tonight, could you call me by my name? I'm just wondering if Doug. I can't even turn this thing down. I'm wondering if Doug or Stacy is around. Could you guys pop up and say hi? That's it. Okay, let's go a little slower. Okay. Well, Doug, if you're listening, my brother, it was it is a pleasure knowing you, and I hope to talk to you again soon. Bye. Now, I've noticed something really interesting is when I use this around people not on a live, it works a lot. I've heard it say, and I've had conversations and stuff like that too. I think with me and Doug, our energies were so similar that it kind of helped to focus it, and that's why he was kind of tripping out on how clear the spirit box was too. If you can imagine hearing one person talking through all of that, a voice going through all of those channels, right? But on the live, it doesn't usually happen like that. Yeah, I don't know why. Maybe it's a rule of the other side where they're not meant to give away too much and that kind of stuff. But yeah, I can definitely use it again. Let me know if you guys want. Now I'm completely blind because I got lights in my eyes. Um, Thank you guys for tuning in. I'm glad you guys enjoyed yourselves. I really enjoyed myself too. Tomorrow night we're gonna be talking about. Yeah, exactly. There's some mysteries, right? If I could call Doug and Doug could talk, then that would be considered proof of the afterlife, which would change a lot of things, right? It's supposed to be faith. It's supposed to be belief without evidence, right? That's kind of how it's supposed to be, right? It's its own your own personal journey to whatever you choose to believe in and all of that kind of stuff too, yeah. But yeah. Anyways, yeah. Tomorrow, I'm not sure what I'm gonna do yet. Yeah, I think that's true though. Doug doesn't want to show off. Maybe he already reincarnated as somebody else and he's born again. I don't know. He laughed because he told me that there's no such thing as reincarnation. He said that 100% with certainty, and that's the only thing I'll argue with him on. Because I believe that we can go ahead and be reborn as something else if we wanted to. I mean, we're spirits, right? But yeah. Anyway, time to pack up and go home. And tomorrow night I'll see you guys again, 8 p.m. Hawaii Standard Time. Thank you guys for watching, the likes, the stars, all of that good stuff, right? I appreciate you guys a lot. I mean, I wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for you guys. I'd be coming out telling ghost stories to myself all month, right? Have a good night. Friday, I made a video. I kind of enjoyed that one too. I made the video. I'm gonna do Kaupe, one of my favorite subjects, on Friday night. It's kind of a little scary, the cannibal dog man, yeah. But yeah, we'll see about tomorrow. Yeah. Take care, guys. Aloha.